favorite lines from season 1 is, "In the pursuit of great, we fail to do good." Can you talk about what that means to you?
It's funny you bring up that line. I think it's easy to get like seduced or distracted by like the shiny thing. It's easy to just focus on big explosions and snazzy cinematic visual effects. It comes down to telling great story and having great characters. We really try to do that. Whether or not we succeed, that's our audience is going to tell us.
So, what could have been, huh? Who doesn't love a great sequel? Well, obviously not Hollywood, because they keep effing them up. It's not even Hollywood this time, it's really this guy Christian. Hey darling, you're my latest victim. It's okay, I'm not gonna be too torturous. Just bully the hell out of you for being a pretentious idiot of the month. It's quite a glamorous list if you think about it. I don't see why one would complain. Hey, don't get mad, I'm just auditioning for the crazy lady position that has opened up now that Jinx has gotten herself an emotional support pet. Seems to be working out pretty well for her. Too bad adoption wait lists are too freaking long for my short attention span. And it usually doesn't rain children where I live, so... It's only been gas bombs lately. But in all seriousness, perception of art is subjective. We all have different definitions and takes on it. For example, I don't know about you, but the way I would define great writing is ear-bleedingly loud, incoherent noise with abstract, terribly paced, scribbly visuals that suffocates the very concept of show not tell with its stinky, pretentious farts. I loved season 2. Like, who cares about characters saying sentences and exchanging words? Those are for losers. We need bars and lyrics like Don Woo. Yeah, badness. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't be bothered to look up the melody or beat for any of this. They're just too fucking annoying and forgettable. Who said Arcane Season 2 isn't gutsy? Like, music videos aren't even doing well on the platform designed for them. Completely replacing your highly anticipated season of a show with them is the boldest, ballsy-ass move I've heard in a while. And Lord knows that hearing process was a long and a painful one. To be uncomfortably honest with you for once, I would rather be standing in the street being water cannoned and suffocated by gas by my pro-Russian government than talking about the shit show right now. But some virus had an audacity to get sick with me, so unfortunately for all of us involved, it's either this or an adoption waitlist, and I'm not ready to be adopted. Just yet. I mean, location share me and we can go from there. Anyway, be done talking about your stuff you consider Russia's slut slave. We are here to celebrate Arcane Season 2. Woohoo, I need more feline. Season 1 of Arcane is a beautiful story of how every action comes with a reaction, each time ever so slightly fattening, worsening, until the unrecognizably deformed shadow of what once was suffocates what could have been to crown itself as what is. Okay, to stop with pretentious fuckery, Season 1 Arcane? Good. It's a great season of a great it's a great season of a show with a lesbian sex in it. Round of applause, everybody. Accompanied by lyrics. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm fucking fantastic. I want to get drunk and watch American classics. America exists in Arcane? Or aren't they sending more aid to Zonai people? The story of Season 2 is actually pretty biblical if you think about it. In Season 1, there was too much stuff going on for the taste buds of the gods above, hence they sent an apocalypse so none of it would matter, so they had less work to do. Who cares or remembers about trivialities like oppressed cities or civilizations, when we have this magical apocalyptic occurrence to survive that will unite us all against a common foe, a guy with a Russian accent. You guys too, huh? First time? Oh, I said story, sorry. I meant an overly stylized and drawn out video with music in it. I think they have a term for that, I forget. And that's what this season is, a music video. Music videos are undeniably a valid art form, but they, in their very nature, are accessories. And that is very important to understand. They are meant and invented to enhance pre-existing storytelling, not to replace it. The structure, pacing, over-reliance, reliance on stylization, the lack of runtime renders them incapable of capturing the sheer vastness of the emotional and intellectual spectrum that long-form storytelling mediums like film and TV can provide. Hence, replacing dialogue, episodes worth of character and plot development with music montages within a show is the most redundant and counterproductive thing you can do as a storyteller. These things are like great seasoning. They can turn your dish into a delicacy, but you can't replace a steak with garlic powder, can you? For example, in episode 3, we open with a sequence of our main characters gassing Zon, an event taking place over the course of weeks, if not months, cramped into a minute of screen time, skipping over countless of interesting character-defining conversations, events, emotions, and reactions necessary to maintain the bond and understanding between the characters and the viewers. Not only that, but we also completely undermine the weight and significance of the events and shifts depicted. Our heroes are literally unleashing a chemical weapon that could be lethal for innocent civilians for weeks into the Undercity, and all of it is played off as a badass, insignificant single act that is downright romanticized by the accompanied pop rock music and the visuals. And as someone who has been being gassed by the corrupted cups on daily basis as of writing this, I'm upset. Why can't my evil police forces come with a badass soundtrack? Someone just keeps crowd-scream.mp3 on a fucking loop, and that's not fun. Once the music montage is done, the viewer is left completely divorced from our main characters and plot, since all of their recent experiences all happened off screen. We just got glimpses of what could have been a highly emotional, hard-hitting set of events. And as such montages pile up, it's only a matter of time till the audience will completely lose the emotional attachment to our characters, since to be invested is to understand, and to understand is to have necessary information that the music videos naturally deprive us of. Another great example is Vi's downward spiral opening episode 5. The weight of her pain and depression is near annulled by the fact that none of it is explored or depicted or lasting. It's not depicted as much as it's flashed across the screen for like 30 seconds. This musical montage represents Vi's character journey no more than a poster or a trailer represents its respective film. Yes, they may depict a thing, but are they substantive enough to completely replace it? Obviously not. Just because something portrays something doesn't mean it can substitute it. Or something like that. Musical montages cannot replace a story or a character journey that deserves and needs episodes worth of exploration and development, like in the case for Vi, if of course we want our audience to be even slightly invested in our story. Welcome back, Harley Quinn. Jinx being artificially sobered up this season is no accident. This is yet another case of the writers being infected by what I call a pussy syndrome, where they develop an irresistible urge to bend over and make out with their own anal hole. They approach Jinx's writing not as writers, but as fangirls. They're so into their own piece of creation, they lose an objective sight of the sheer complexity and fatality of the situation, thinking, she's just too awesome and adorable in her craziness to ever truly suffer. Poor baby. Terrorist. However, they were sensible enough to understand that the labels unstable, murderer, and a hero do not go hand in hand. So they decided to surgically remove the chip in her head that compelled her to be capable of being, complex and rickety. And as a result of moral lobotomy, Jinx is a hero, everybody! Here's a lesson of the month, kids. Being suicidal and nice to children undoes any of many terrorist attacks you might have possibly committed in the last 2 days. You're welcome. Instead of exploring her evident mental decline set up by the end of season 1, or staying true to her own words of welcoming and accepting the new her right before blowing up a building filled with people, we give her a nanny duty. Jinx never truly swore off from being a murderer, or found remorse to deserve the hero tagline to make the arc season 2 gives her feel deserved or organic. What actually happened was the writers threw her a new toy to be distracted with, so she didn't blow up more people as she otherwise would, while they cleaned up the past messes for her, so that at the end of the season, it all seemed like none of it happened in the first place, and none of Jinx's fatal actions were ever actually that consequential to BH. Totally not because the writers burnt the evidence for her. The gaslighting gets to a point where they unironically expect you to protest Jinx being imprisoned.
Then she just surrendered. I didn't even have time to think before they hauled her off.
You guys do know how crime works, right? It's like a permanent thing. For fuck's sake, you're a police. So most of the season, because Jinx is quarantined and prohibited from shooting at things because the viewers can't remember that she's actually a terrorist, the only thing there is left for her to do is to walk around, make quirky jokes, maybe adopt a child. What season 2 does to Jinx is an equivalent of taking an explosive and replacing it with pyrotechnics, thinking people will be so distracted by the loud and colorful spectacle they won't notice the suspicious lack of dead bodies. And they didn't, of course, because people are stupid. There are stakes and deadliness to explosives that fireworks cannot fabricate. Trust me, I know. In season 1, Jinx has a completely warped and distorted sense of reality. She cannot differentiate between a hallucination and real-life events, has constant, permanent, invasive, destructive impulses. She's the definition of the homicidal maniac, has no mental capacity to understand the value of human life. She's so far gone she cannot even comprehend the drawbacks of putting a hole in someone's skull.
Half a dozen enforcers dead! Enforcers dead!
Yeah.
A building blown to pieces!
Oh, yeah.
She's groomed to be a literal weapon. In season 2, writers take out that weapon and replace it with a bubble gun. They took her insanity and psychosis and tried to sell it as quirkiness all along.
Wake up, sis. I'm a hero.
Because psychopaths and eccentric people are basically the same, are they not? Wild, murderous beings don't develop pacifistic tendencies overnight. Jinx suddenly turning all sane and fun is as achievable in nature as my cat walking in on 2 paws, spewing Shakespeare on me just because I brought her a new squeaky toy. I used to praise Arcane Talent back for taking Jinx's pre-Arcane Harley Quinn-esque craziness, something people once found fun and joyful, and exploring it as an actual problem and a tragedy. But here's the thing about season 2. Characters do not develop, they regress. Jinx regresses back to a character that gives people the ability to once again write her mental illness off as just another funny quirk. Do I have to talk about her? You know, I could just go, this character is terribly written and rushed and the video there, but I can't. Why can't I? I'm asking you, dear viewer, why would me doing that make you dissatisfied with my writing? What even is the point and purpose of such videos when we can just say a sentence, which would imply the information we mean to get across? However, the truth is, you're not here to hear me make statements. You're here because you want to be told a story, and making statements without any kind of backing is defeating the whole purpose of storytelling. Argumentation is what stops valuable writing from becoming a worthless pile of words. So, as a writer, you can't just say a hefty sentence and expect it to do the job of fleshing itself out for you. Organic storytelling is when the viewer is shown things, they perceive them, they drive conclusions. Synthetic one is when a singular piece of crucial information gets implanted into your head by a means of verbal exposition. You gain the knowledge, but you don't feel the weight of it. It's very much like what I explained with music videos. It's a shortcut that skips over the most intellectually and emotionally investing parts of the story. For example, in episode 1, we are told by Caitlyn that she's a decorated officer, powerful enough to barge into the council and tell leaders of the city, shut their mouths up and follow her orders. We never see or learn what makes her such a significant authoritarian political figure, a decorated officer, since she never seemed to be one beforehand. Season 1 never depicted her as anything more than a mere patrol, or an average officer at best. But even despite the question of her competence, her demeanor and confidence while doing so is especially the most jarring and abrupt illogical shift. It's hard to buy Caitlyn as a commanding authority because there are only her own words backing her as such, especially powerful enough to boss around the literal bosses of the city and have them obey. Actions way more than words. Caitlyn is all words this season. It also doesn't help that her redemption arc happens and is finalized completely off screen, solely because because she happened to stumble upon her ex as a dictator on a guarding duty. We never see her make that single most important decision of her entire life, which entirely dismisses the weight and importance of it, and is as unfathomably stupid from the writers as having Vi decide to become an enforcer backstage. The show verbally warning us about Caitlyn having doubts about Mbassa and the whole situation has as much significance and weight to it as me saying sorry before stabbing you in the gut. The redundancy of the martial law is pointed out by her as the reason for her dissatisfaction, but the conflict and specifically her progressively concerned reaction to it is never really shown to us, which is essential for us to fully grasp the scale of the burden it represents for her. Sentences cannot replicate feelings and investment that episodes worth of character development can steer within the audience. It's like delivering a punchline without setting up a joke. This is why hearing her say she's dissatisfied with the current political order when the last time we saw her was her being happily crowned as a dictator does not work in favor of and does not add anything to her redemption arc. There's a whole chunk of organic storytelling missing there. Christian, please do depict more character-defining, life-altering events off screen. I'm tired of feeling things. Let's now talk about the little miss I can excuse poisoning my own people because my petty girlfriend wants to blow up my sister, but I draw the line at wearing badges. Vi, you're f***ing off the mark, girl. It's that fuck-ass tutu you should be protesting instead. Vi is what happens when the writers can't divorce a character from their own ship. She's Finned in this season, if Finn owned a vagina and happened to be a scissor enthusiast. Except it's worse because Finn is not intended to be a simp, it's just how he came across, while Vi is very much meant to function like a little pink vibrator this season, taken out only for horny purposes and idly and purposelessly discarded the rest 99% of the time. Vi does not take a single action all by herself even once this season. Only thing she ever does is react to events going on around her. She's like a dog on a leash that the writers think will be perceived as powerful because it barks a lot. Not once does she make an autonomous decision that moves the plot forward. Her entire presence is decorational at best. Vi just lays around until one of our other main characters barges into her space and assigns a purpose to her. If not, she will lay around a little more. If Caitlyn gasses Vi's home, Vi will gas Vi's home. If Caitlyn wants to kill Vi's sister, Vi wants to kill Vi's sister. If Vi's sister wants to find their dead father, Vi wants to find their dead father. If Caitlyn is staging a coup, Vi is staging a coup. If Caitlyn is going to a war, Vi is going to a war. The only significant sovereign decision she ever made was to join Enforcers, but that single most intriguing aspect of her entire character writing this season happens to happen off fucking screen, so thanks a lot, Christian and Amanda and the third one. Other 99.99% of the time, she's not written like a person, but as a tool to make the lesbian romance functional and existent. No longer does she have her own driving forces, ambitions, feelings, opinions, or principles, other than being completely and irrevocably pigeonholed into a hole of a romantic interest. Because the writers cannot get a grip of their own hormones. Themes and characteristics that were the main driving force for Vi in the past season, like unconditional love for her sister.
You can fire that thing if you want, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to abandon you again.
Ambition, resilience, loyalty and devotion, determination to help at any cost.
I wish I could say it gets easier, kiddo, but I'd be lying. What I can say is, she still needs you. They all do. So what do you say?
Is annulled, it's unalived. The notion of her actions fueling the story is revoked, but I cannot seem more foreign to those concepts in Season 2. More so, this new installment pisses all over Season 1 Vi by annihilating the stakes, significance, and weight of her past experiences by implying that 7 years of prison, death of her entire family, her sister being groomed into a psycho-terrorist, none of this comes even remotely close to how traumatic being broken up with by Caitlyn apparently is. Get the fuck off the floor, Vi. It deserves better.
On your left.
Now you're probably thinking, where's Victor or Jace or Mel? Well, congratulations, you're the very first person to ask those questions, cause characters in Arcane could not have been bothered to. I don't really have to make a separate section for each remaining character because A, each one's biography this season is like 2 paragraphs long, despite every single one of them going through arguably the most significant shifts, and B, their arcs are all the same. Let me explain. For example, a character is at a point A, and they need to get to a point B. Logically, you'd assume they need to take a long and transformative journey across 2 points, but you see, Christian, or Amanda, or the third one, has found a way around it. Remember that scene from Interstellar bending space-time continuum to travel across the universes? Let's take that into practice. What if we just open up a magical portal right next to point A that transports our main characters to point B in no time? And I'm not being figurative here, they literally open a portal in the story, multiple ones. The magic portal will transform and transport our characters to such extreme situations and environments that they will fucking teleport not only across the space-time, but also speed run their character development instead of going through the process of it. It will open up and swallow our characters and will spit them out as completely different people with swapped political ideologies, philosophies, agendas, and goals, doing seasons worth of work in a span of an episode. You know what they say, once an accident, twice a coincidence, 3 times a pattern? Arcane Season 2 does it 5 times. Jace, Mel, Heimerdinger, Echo, Vector go through the same exact arc of magic dust and sparkles. There you go, the magic of writing. Victor starts off as a pacifistic, harmless little puppy, gets shoved into a vagina hole of Hextech, comes out as a Jesus who starts to develop an appetite for ending the world. Mel is swallowed up by dark stuff, comes back as a golden goddess Jesus. Don't ask me, I don't know. Heimer just transports into an alternative timeline, becomes a suicidal musician. Echo also goes through a portal and comes back in love with a psycho girl who killed dozens of his friends. But we don't talk about that. Jace goes through a portal, comes back, and decides to take a walk towards his bestie, who he is gonna smash in a bad way. Everything in this season is a miniature version of itself. Everything is shrunk in size. Cities become rooms, characters become caricatures, events become montages, and themes become monologues. And every aspect of the world is stripped down to its most basic, unseasoned, mandatory definition. This, of course, could be seen as nitpicking because in the grand scheme of things, world building is an aspect that many franchises successfully or unsuccessfully overlook. But the thing is, Arcane doesn't. Or at least, it didn't used to. It's not that Arcane Season 2 failed to build its world to my liking. The problem is that it took one of the most sturdy and intriguing worlds in recent TV history and completely defecated upon it. The ending of Season 1 is a heart-wrenching punch in the gut, and exactly the reason Season 2 never lands. When we grieve, we don't grieve past or the present, we grieve the future. There's nothing more tragic and torturous in the world than the thought of what could have been. But for the notion of what could have been to exist in our head, the show first needs to build up what was and is. Arcane Season 1 very successfully managed to depict and build a contrasting world of 2 cities, the highlighted generational trauma as a consequence, classism, terrorism, poverty, illness, abuse of substances, the gray area represented by people in charge who want to do good but have no means for it, or struggle against a brutal, unyielding, and rigged system. Piltover and Zaun are no longer presented as states or cities or people or socio-political entities. They are locations. That's the extent of their entire significance in the story. They are reduced to being places that our main characters go to. The Council of Piltover, once a layered hierarchical system with competing influences and families contending for power, is turned into a room. Like, Piltover is now a room that any random person can waltz into, and whoever's in the room, as long as they're in the room, holds absolute power and can dictate the entire military and political order of the city. A random teenager can be elected as a literal dictator of both cities by a random foreign lady that has been visiting for 2 days, and everyone around is like, yep, makes sense, yes. Zon is now an empty space that our main heroes can feel free to fill up with a lethal chemical gas, with no regards for the lives of alleged local innocent civilians, while the show makes a tone-deaf, glamorous, badass pop rock music video out of it all. Because gas looks badass, and that's enough to make police brutality awesome. Zon doesn't even remember that he wants independence anymore. They're all distracted worshipping their own blue-haired psycho of the month. Jinx never becomes the leader of Zon, exposing the plotline to be completely irrelevant to the story. That's how seriously this season takes the oppressed people of the Undercity. They are all reduced to a punchline. Maybe that murderous gas that Vi has been spraying on them finally worked. Have you noticed I refuse to elaborate on Cyborg Victor Jesus and his impending apocalypse? That's because there's nothing to elaborate on. The show cheats on a perfect, tight-knit, highly intellectual, rich world and narrative offered by Season 1 with an MCU plotline. We go from a story about a politically, socially, and economically abandoned Undercity and its fight for independence from an oppressive elite state to that same decades-long political and military conflict being minimized to one petty girl wanting to kill another schizophrenic one. Until the entire thing gets dropped the moment Cuckoo Jace jumps through a portal and says Magic Jesus Cyborg Victor bad, causing Zon and Piltover to get amnesia, forget about decades-long conflict, xenophobia, classism, history of oppression, not even talking about the amounts of casualties because totally not crazy guy who saw the future told them to. Jesus. Oh, you f*** off. Arcane Season 2 is like a cat who's so into chasing its own tail it forgets to feed itself and dies. And I am someone who's getting a secondhand motion sickness from watching it do it. There seems to be a huge disconnect between what audience thinks makes Arcane great and what creators do. And I don't think there has ever been a more extreme example of favoring style over substance in media history. Season 2 got so preoccupied by mindless masturbation and dress-up, it forgot that writing, even if much less glamorous on surface, is a necessity, not a dessert. It's like blood to a body, fuel to a car. It's not something you see or particularly brag about, but just like the air in our lungs, once it's missing, everything else loses its meaning. Writing may not make your story pretty or melodic, but it keeps it alive. No single writer can ever claim to understand or care for their story and characters if they assume that such life-fueling component can ever be budgeted on. But before I go, a few things. First of all, I want to make a Q&A video or something of sorts, so I need to start collecting questions. And if you look down below in the pinned comment, you'll see a Google form that you can submit your questions with. So if you're interested, you can send me some questions. Also, I recently launched YouTube memberships and there's like emojis and stuff, so you can help me make more by joining in. Also, I have Patreon. You can check it out. If not, you can click buttons, you decide which, but yeah, it helps. So, bye.